Thank you for staying with us on Third Eye Africa TV, broadcasting from the Central Business District, Abuja. It's a pleasure being here to take a look at our national dailies and what exactly they contain. With me, I have the leadership newspaper. I also have Daily Trust. I have New Telegram, Telegraph rather, and then I have This Day, and finally, I have Blueprint newspaper. And interestingly, just like yesterday, most of the stories are they carry almost the same thing. But let's take a look at starting with the leadership newspaper. Uh, what we have here, ahead of 2027 wrangling within PDP, unsettles Atiku and supporters. You can find the story on page 4 of the leadership. I will write on any available platform, says ex-VP. Tinubu spoiler game, coalition says. PDP governors playing Tinubu spoiler game, that's according to coalition rather. And then CPC bloc declares support for president. You can find all of this on page 4 of the leadership newspaper. And then killings. FG restates commitment to ending insecurity. You can find this on page 18. And then terrorists kill 7 in fresh Adamo attack. Plateau governor bans night grazing. The story is on page 6. And then Dangote cuts petrol price to 835 naira per litre. Kaduna IDPs cry out over hardship. You can find that story on page 4. And then Tinubu gives census panel 3 weeks to submit report on page 18 to page 20. Reps invite Ibas over state of affairs in Rivers State. And looking at the back here, not much can be obtained from here. NBC, tell your papa and free speech. Well, if you want to take a look at that, you can go to the back page of the leadership newspaper. The Daily Trust, which happens to be one of my favorite newspapers, FG declares peace move to Niger Republic. Tugar meets with country's delegation in the army. You can find that on the front page, and then the continuation on page 3 and 4. CPC group affirms loyalty to APC. Tinubu amid defection speculations on page 13 to page 23. Filling stations yet to adjust as Dangote reduces petrol price again. Page 10, EFCC launches manhunt for CBEX promoters, vows to recover investors' money. Villagers flee as gunmen attack Benue communities again on page 6. And this is to say that insecurity is really worrisome. Every day you pick up the papers, you hear one story of attacks from one community to another, helpless villagers or people being attacked in the middle of the night, and that's not nice. I think our security architecture needs to sit up and do something about this. On page 27 of the Daily Trust, Boko Haram kills 6 in attacks on Adamawa communities. Page 12, 2027 will ride any vehicle that guarantees good governance. That's according to Atiku. And finally here, 36 cows killed, 42 poisoned in Plateau as governor bans night grazing. And to the back here, nobody cares about Plateau, by Abubakar Adam Ibrahim. You can take a look at that at the back of Daily Trust newspaper. And then New Telegraph. Adelabu to World Bank, why Nigeria can have stable electricity. Says 12 million users presently on 6 million meters. Global lender urges Nigeria orders to lower tariffs. Focus on regional trade on page 4 and 25. And then we still have the article lowering or slashing fuel prices to 835 naira per litre on page 8. Police uncover gun smuggling network in Kano, recover 19 fabricated rifles. Others on page 29 and page 2. Otupo massacre, David Mark urges security to brace for challenge. And then UK Supreme Court rules legal definition of a woman based on biological sex on page 4. Tinubu approves 15 billion naira for flood mitigation as 15 million Nigerians at risk. You can find that on page 3 and 29. And then refund 182 billion naira withheld from TSA since 2015 to page 2 and 27. That's according to reps to remit rather. Refund 182 billion naira withheld from TSA since 2015. Summons Ibas to appear today. Again, Rivers women protest against emerging rule in the state. Let's take a look at the back. How anti-Tinubu gang up can triumph Okay, very interesting. What do you think an anti-Tinubu gang up is going to look like? Now, let's take a look at this day newspaper. Moabudu Kwame Onwachi named in Time 100 most influential people. Tinubu rejoices with Ebony Light's chief executive. And of course, if you're a media personality, you should rejoice with her. She's been doing amazingly well. Nigeria's foreign minister Yusuf Tugar in historic visit to Niger Republic. You can find that story on page 8. And then Farouk Ali attacks El-Rufai as Masari Al-Makura, 21 CPC chiefs back Tinubu. Barrow canvasses support for president, says he is laying foundation for Nigeria's prosperity. This starts on the front page and continues to page 40. In landmark ruling, UK Supreme Court says trans women, not legally women, on page 45. Of course, trans women are not legally women. And then to the back here, when native doctors mint money. Okay, Soludo, Anambra State Governor. You can take a look at that on the back of this newspaper. And finally, excuse me, we can take a look at Blueprint newspaper. NNPC Limited GCEO commits to transformational partnerships for industry growth. You can find that story on page 18. And then NSI assets increased from 2.26 trillion naira to 4.42 trillion naira. Federation Corp Abakaliki dismantle Aimba in Asamba. You can find it on page 32. Essex Holdings emerges first to meet new CBN's 500 billion naira capital base on page 15 for the business lovers. 15 million Nigerians at risk of flood disasters in 2025. That's according to the Vice President, Shetima. And then to the main story here, Plateau Borno Benue attacks don't provide terrorists oxygen to breathe. Federal government tells media, reaffirms commitment to tackling insecurity. Mutfwang bans night grazing in Plateau. And then 2027 Al Makura Masari Bulama, 20 other ex-CPC chieftains back Tinubu. I think we've seen that story in major newspapers. And then to education, 2025 UTME JAM raises fund fraud alert, clarifies misleading reports or reports on page 9. Man freed after 17 years in detention over stalled murder trial. Fubara yet to apologize to me, says Wike on page 6. Obasa's removal as Lagos Speaker unconstitutional, court declares. You can find our story on page 7 of the Blueprint newspaper. And of course, the back page is filled with sport stories for the sport lovers. NYLC pays tribute to Christian Chairman Chiku. And then Federation Cup Bakalaki dismantles Enimba in Asaba, which of course I've talked about. Bielsa United Insurance out. Aruna, other African stars crash out of 2025 ITTF World Cup. And then FCAN moved to train 2,000 grassroots coaches as president backs double awards. Gateway Games, Ogun unveils logo, theme song, and mascot. FCT FA Mons 1980 AFCON winner. So that's it on from the Blueprint newspaper. And at this moment, it's time to take a look at these stories and analyze them. We have our press review. I have with me here Barrister Ugochukwu Siguzo, a legal practitioner and public affairs commentator. Ugochukwu, good morning.
Thank you very much, Divan. Thank you very much. That's been fine. We thank God.
It's great having you here.
Thank you.
And I also have Mr. Charles Ayedo, our in-house analyst and political commentator. Charles, good morning.
Good morning, Vivian.
So you've listened to all the newspapers headlines. You've seen them, and which of the stories pique your interest? Let's start with you, Charles.
All right, thank you, Vivian. Let me start with this day. I must commend the governor of Plateau State. In the last 2 days, we've been following up with developments in Plateau, and the president, issuing his own statement 2 days ago, and there was a broadcast yesterday by the governor. I was emphasizing on practical steps, measures to, to prevent, reoccurrence of these killings that is, that has become, you know, something very, very frequent in Plateau. So the governor has, make some pronouncements like banning of night grazing, banning of night transportation of some certain goods, banning of bikes and stuff like that at night. And I think he has also given the Plateau people a message of hope, condoled with the family and all of that. I listened to the broadcast this morning, played back, and which I think if you stay on this station, we'll be keeping you updated on that broadcast. So that's one thing I saw on this day. Then blueprint, I think there's another thing, sad incident that is like also very worrisome, that has to do with some other killings that took place in Adamawa, Benue, and the rest of them. Because I always say Nigerians have this short memory. Something happens today, another one happens tomorrow, then we put aside what has happened yesterday, focus on what is happening today. But without trying to do that, I saw something on Blueprint, like the FG turning back to, talk to the media about not being an oxygen to terrorists. I don't know. Why is he always like,
I
Bivan?
think
I
I
don't know
agree
whether
with
I'm
you.
to ask you
I
question if you have
actually
to
had
ask
to
me.
pen down something yesterday about when I saw the Sultan talking about the social media being a terrorist that needs to be, that we need to get rid of. And I don't know how I feel about that, but I don't think not just the social media, the media in general has come under attack in different guises. So I think the media or social media is not a problem here. We need to look at issues, things that are happening, and tackle them holistically instead of. Without the media, I think things will have been worse than they are today. At a point in time, the media or the social media had to update Nigerians on what is happening in different parts of the country. Without the media or the social media, tribes, people, places would have been completely
Yeah,
obliterated.
absolutely.
People have been wiped out. Tribes will have gone extinct. You know, we can't say the media or the social media is the problem we have in Nigeria right now. This is not the right time to attack the media. There's one profession I know that goes against all odds in the country, to against all odds to do what they need to do. I think it's the media. So let's give the media some credit whenever something happens. I don't think we are the problem of Nigeria at the moment. Gochiku, let's also hear from you some of the stories you feel that pique your interest.
Well, let me just add my voice to the issue of the media. The suggestion that the media seems to be giving us oxygen to terrorist activities, um, I do not know where that is coming from, but one would expect that the media should be applauded in situations like this.
Absolutely.
The media has always been at the forefront bringing out these stories, because sometimes the position or posture of government to most of these activities by terrorists seem to be from a very lazy side. And so it's like the media is always there to call the attention of the public and the government that so things are happening. And that is why it's quite worrisome when you see political leaders or government leaders saying they don't read or watch the media. And that is why you see they seem to be oblivious of the realities around them, because they are playing down on the media. So I think that the attitude towards the media should change, and so that they will see the media better from a better perspective, and by that there will be improvement. I also saw that the governor of Plateau State, from the papers, has declared some sort of strategic moves to stop these activities of terrorism and violence in Plateau State. I just want to say that the governor himself will not be on the streets executing these things. He will still depend on security agencies to carry out these things. So if security agencies are not up and doing, whatsoever he has said will not work. And he's the chief security officer, but we know that based on reality, he may be just by name. If the people who are to give instructions to these security machineries are not up and doing in ensuring that these security men carry out their responsibilities, whatever the governor has just declared may not really have any effect, and the violence will continue.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, the fact that I think, Charles, we discussed this, lack of prosecution, adequate prosecution, is also a problem in this country. We've seen times without number where people carry out attacks on communities, and in some instances, security men say, "Ah, we've arrested those who carried out these attacks. We've arrested so number of people in connection." What about the prosecution? How is prosecution carried out in Nigeria? I mean, Gochiku, you are a legal practitioner. Why do we always have issues with prosecution in this country?
Well, the challenge with prosecution the challenges are enormous. You see, it starts with the process of initiating a prosecution. We start with investigation. Most of the investigative abilities of these officers are always reliant upon confessional statements. And when they are not confessional statements, because there is either a lack of training, or there is also a lack of the intelligence and knowledge to carry out this investigation, you end up at the point of being incapable of prosecuting. So one of the thing is that it is not just enough to arrest. Who have you arrested? What is the basis for your arrest? Do you have any evidence to proceed to court with? And when it's now time to go to court, you will see that all you will have is just one or two people in detention, or almost all these people arrested in detention without any trial. And at the end of the day, there will be no positive result, and you will not be able to see any results. So why the prosecution in Nigeria is having issue until we get to that point when government is ready to put in time, training, and finance into investigation, we will not be able to make any real useful or positive prosecution that will nip these whole problems in the bud.
Interesting, interesting. I'm really seeing it from a different perspective here, but without prosecution, trust me, these things are going to continue like this. Charles, back to you. Any other stories you want to comment on?
Okay, I'll just take it up from there. From that point of, I'm happy you are a legal practitioner, and this issue is coming up. We have had cases like the one I'm going to point out now in Nigeria, where we have clear evidence. We have facts. Evidence before you speaks volume, and you don't even need confessional statements or even investigation in some cases, because the evidence is so glaring that it's something that you should just go ahead and prosecute. For example, one of the headlines, I think New Telegraph or so, says police uncovers smuggling, arms smuggling network in Kano State. This is a recent story. It's on New Telegraph this morning. We've had issues of an aircraft landing somewhere around the northwest or so, fully loaded with arms and stuff like that. What happens to those cases? Because I'm not to be asking you these questions, but these are just issues we should be able to discuss, because it's also coinciding with what you are talking about this morning, prosecution. So now, this gun smuggling network uncovered in Kano. We have had cases. We uncovered these things. How does it end? Because that is why we are here. Because part of what we are doing, we want to follow up issues with security-related issues and investigations, because this is a specialized channel where we deal with investigative journalism, reporting, and all of that. So cases like this, where do you think this is going to lead us to? Is it just going to end on the pages of newspapers that a gun smuggling network uncovered by the police in Kano, like the others?
Well, I would not know how they came about the uncovering of the gun smuggling
It's
network.
in the news.
Yes, but the truth is that, you see, the state has the power to prosecute.
Okay.
And the state is nothing but human beings like you and I. There are persons who are sitting in different offices who are responsible for taking certain decisions on behalf of you and I. If this gun smuggling network has been uncovered, one will expect that whosoever, or the set of persons who are sitting in different positions to ensure that this thing is being dealt with, will take the appropriate steps. But one thing also you must not forget is that, you see, I keep on saying Nigerians are very emotional. When you go to courts do not do emotions. You may be able to come on air, on the newspapers, to say that you have uncovered it. But when you get to the nitty-gritty of the case, or when you are called upon to provide certain evidence, you'll be surprised that there is nothing.
Okay, just a follow-up on that. I'm not
Yes.
trying to do Bivan's job here because we should be deliberating on these issues. Connect that with the CBES case now, also on Daily Trust this morning, that EFCC has launched manhunt on CBES. I think is a Ponzi scheme,
Yes, yes.
promotion and all of that, that vows to recover investors' fund. The same police, EFCC, you are from the judiciary sector,
From the
you know.
legal.
So I am kind of confused because these issues, we are going to come back here in few weeks or in few months, and I'm going to be happy if we can do a follow-up and see where it's headed. The arms smuggling uncovered, what is the follow-up on it? Are they in court? Are they being charged? The CBES EFCC case that is also a bold headline this morning on the pages of the newspaper. What, because my challenge with the system, I don't know whether I want to say the judicial sector in Nigeria, is that we so much have these cases, but we don't have prosecution like what Bivan was trying to say.
You may not be correct that there is no prosecution. There may be prosecution, but it also has to do with media coverage. There will be prosecution because oftentimes when some of these things start, the media will give a lot of, let me use the word oxygen to it. And then when going halfway into it, the oxygen seems to reduce. And the next time we may hear about that case, maybe when they say court judgment. So I think there may be prosecution, but if you follow up on it, you may see the end of it through prosecution till judgment. Some other times, they may not proceed to prosecution for one or two reasons. Like I said earlier, there are people who are seated in offices and positions that are to take certain decisions with respect to some of these cases. And I believe that they should be taking some of those decisions in the interest of the nation. If they are not doing so, that is the effect we are seeing on the real life.
And this takes us back to the conversation where I even had to reach out to you and say, Ugochukwu, let's have you in the studio here. So I saw you take a stand on the case of Sandy Jackson, the man in Adamawa State who 10 years ago was attacked by a herder. He was in his farm and he was attacked by a herder. And he was able to fight and overpower and ended up, unaliving the herder. Now, he was sentenced to life imprisonment or something.
Death.
Death by hanging or
Yes.
something. Sentence to death. Now, you were on your farm and then you were attacked and you fought and you killed the person. And they say, no, you had ample opportunity not to kill the person. And I don't get, how did the court arrive at that?
Well, so the Jackson's case is a very, very interesting case. It's a very, very interesting case. I think it must be noted and clearly stated that that Supreme Court decision has been subject of so much analysis over the weeks past. There was a dissenting judgment by Honorable Justice Helen Ogumiju. That dissenting judgment...
What do you mean by dissenting judgment?
The dissenting judgment, the panel, a Supreme Court sits as a panel. There are about 5 to 7 justices that sit to hear an appeal. There are about 5 to 7 justices that sit to hear an appeal, depending on if there are situations where the justices have to be 7, some of them have to be 5. I think in this case they were 7 because it's a capital offense.
Okay.
So there was, one thing that people must also understand, because there have been so much backlash on the judiciary over this issue. One thing people must also understand is that a case they don't hear cases at the Supreme Court. A case starts from the High Court or the District Court, depending on the jurisdiction, and then goes through different courts until it gets to the Supreme Court. So what the Supreme Court would do is to review the decisions of other courts, review the evidence that was presented before the other courts, so that they can arrive at a decision. Now, in Samuel Jackson's case, the lead judgment was read by Honorable Justice Baba Idris. The point the Supreme Court was making in that lead judgment is that, yes, you had an attack. Yes, you were able to overpower the person. But the Supreme Court is saying that, by reasonable standards, you had the opportunity to retreat. You had the opportunity to back off. You have been able to destabilize the man, taking over the arm. So one would have expected that you ran away. instead of going ahead to kill the person. And the Supreme Court made a very, in the lead judgment, made a very important point that I must bring out. They said that had the appellant, that is Samuel Jackson himself, stabbed the man on the leg or on the hand or any other place to immobilize him, it would have been different. Had he stabbed the man on the neck once, it would have been different. But he stabbed him 3 times on the neck. And as far as they were concerned, that is vengeance and that's revenge.
This was a case of self-defense.
Well,
It's a case of self-defense where you are being attacked. Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the legal counsel.
I'm telling you what the judgment says.
I'm saying, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of legal counsel to Samuel Jackson. Is that justifiable? I'm attacked. What do I do? What is self-defense and what is malicious about this?
Let me say this. I started by pointing out to you that there was a dissenting judgment. The dissenting judgment by Honorable Justice Ogumiju seems to, for me, seems to have addressed the case in more fairness. She had a lot of agreements with the lead judgment, but there seems to be some points of disagreement. Now, one of it is that the lead judgment did not take the lead judgment saw further information or evaluated for further evidence or further facts that were given by the appellant during his defense that were not stated in the statement as an afterthought. But the dissenting judgment said it's not an afterthought. He was only giving you further information or further facts apart from the ones that were stated in his statement. And most of the further facts he gave were verified by the judge. What is the further fact or what is the further information? The appellant said that these assailants who attacked him stabbed him on the hand while he was trying to run away, also stabbed him on the head while he was trying to run away until he was able to overpower him. And the dissenting judgment is saying that by reasonableness, a reasonable man standard, a man who has been stabbed on the neck, who has been stabbed on the hand, and on the head before he was able to overpower the assailant, you don't think or expect that he is going to be reasonable enough to maybe stab him on the leg or stab him somewhere else to immobilize him. And interestingly, the trial judge who heard the case confirmed it in court that there were evidence, there was marks of these stabs on the hand and on the head. And the dissenting judgment is saying that by virtue of a reasonable man standard, you don't expect the man to be so sane. And the one very important thing to the judge in the dissenting judgment said is that whether you like it or not, self-defense does not mean that there will be no death. Death can arise or fall out of self-defense. So that was why the dissenting judgment actually discharged and acquitted him. But of course, the dissenting judgment is a minority judgment and cannot stand as the judgment of the court. So for me, and in my own humble opinion, I think the Supreme Court expected so much of the appellant. A man who was in that kind of situation, who was in a bush, he doesn't even know the capacity of the assailant. If there were people around him, to where he's running to, if he was going to run into somebody's hands or so, he doesn't even know what the man can do. And you're expecting him to be so sane enough to have taken another action than to kill the person who attacked him. The dissenting judgment, for me, seems to stand more with fairness. And I think that's my position. But the position of the Supreme Court must be taken into consideration in 2 points. One, there is no place for revenge when you're in self-defense. You don't do revenge in the name of self-defense. It may not be applicable in this case, but there are cases where, let me give you a example of a very interesting case of, is it Nama and State. There was a case where the man was attacked with a broken bottle. He ran into the toilet and hid himself. And after about 15 minutes, when the assailant could not access him, the man threw away the bottle and walked away. About 15 minutes or about 30 minutes later, he saw the man somewhere else and then attacked the man and killed the man. That is not self-defense. So the law is saying that there is no place for revenge in the name of self-defense, and that is why there is an offense called threat to life. And then secondly, there is an importance when somebody is giving statements at the police, give every information in its details.
Wow.
Now, this is where I have to move away from this conversation because I'm most likely to go into self-defense here.
But these are the realities of the law. These are the
Now, the
realities
law
of the
is
law.
very, very funny, and I don't think it's fair to anybody being at home, being at work, wherever you are, you're being attacked by someone, and you just try to defend yourself, and in the process, you want to live the person, and somebody will say what you did is bad. I don't know where, but do you think these laws should be reversed or looked into to make it look? I am at home. I'm at peace. I'm in my farm. I'm working. I'm in my comfort zone. You attack me, and I mean, where do we draw the line in self-defense?
That's what we are saying. There is a rule called the rule of proportionality. If I attack you with a stick and you shoot me a gun, is that self-defense? Whatsoever you're using to defend yourself must be proportionate to what I used to attack you.
Well, that's my capacity. That's what I have.
And the
That's
law,
what within my power. That's I have a gun. I have a licensed gun. Why do I have it in the first place if I cannot use it to defend myself?
No, I think what, let me just come in a bit. I'm not a lawyer, but I think what that law seems to be pointing out there is self-defense can be related, can be relatively, be referred to as like a reflex kind of action
yes.
situation. So you try to hit me in the eye, and I throw my punch to you, and your tooth, you know, falls off, or maybe my uppercut is
Yes,
stronger.
there should be no cooling
And the
off.
person, yeah, there should be no afterthought.
Yes, there should be no
I think
afterthought.
that's the point.
Yes, because this place here, this conversation here would not be exhausted if we keep talking about self-defense. Because as far as I am concerned, it sounds very, very much irrational. That's because I'm a journalist and I'm just a human being. I'm a person. If you attack me, I just feel like I'll use anything within my power to protect myself and defend myself. But the law says otherwise. Let's move away from this. Do we have other headlines?
Well, I just want to make a comment. Running down into this whole issue of the legal situation we have been talking about, there was a story on Blueprints that talked about a man who has been freed after 17 years of stall trial. And I'm asking myself, what happens to this man? What happens to this man? Why would the state, this is what we are talking about, prosecution, why would the state initiate a proceedings to prosecute somebody if you do not have the evidence? And you have kept this man in detention for 17 good years, and only for you to just come to court and say, my lord, we don't have evidence, we want to withdraw this charge. And the man is discharged and acquitted and asked to go home. And 70 years of his life, to where 70 years of his life have been wasted. And I think that we have to get to a point where the legislative arm of government must begin to look into the consequence of some of these things. One should be able to take the states to court and say,
so in
pay
Nigeria,
damages.
People take the states.
I'm not aware.
So how do we get to the point where you take the state to court and then you get justice? Because I cannot imagine myself. Look, sometimes I'm sorry, I find myself thinking like some sort of, I don't know. But in a situation like this, how do I start my life all over after 17 years in detention for what I didn't do, for no crime of mine, for something that nobody had an evidence on? And then I'm trying to take you to court, or I can't even take you to court in the first place. What do I do in a situation like this? So it doesn't just sit well with me. It doesn't feel right. But, Wachiku, can you help out here? What do we do in a situation to make sure that people get justice after in this kind of cases and situations?
I would expect that there should be legislative action towards this, even if it may be implicit as it is today. There should be clear and express legislative action. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of anyone. There may be, but I don't know. But I think that there should be, so that where the state takes any decision as to prosecute somebody without any basis, especially in clear cases like this, where you come after 17 years to say you are not prosecuting again, there should be consequences against the state, so that a lot of these prosecutions that are baseless, that are needless, will stop. It will also cause security agencies to be very, very careful in their activities. It's not just about fundamental rights, because we have seen a lot of situations where the police will just say, I don't like your face, or you are something, maybe at the government or something, and they take you to court, carry one charge, put on your head. After a long process of prosecution, nothing is found against the person. And sometimes it ends up as a no-case submission. And if it's like that, at the end of the day, you just tell the person to go home. So I think that the only solution to it will be a definite legislative amendment or definite legislative lawmaking to make sure that these things are nipped in the bud.
So this is legislative, not even judiciary. Are you trying to like shift the blame from the
There is no blame on the
judiciary to the legislature? Because we've seen situations where, for example, I remember the case of Audu Mekori a couple of years ago versus Nasir El-Rufai, where Nasir El-Rufai had to was asked to pay um, Audu Mekori, that's the Chocolate City's CEO.
yes.
Remember, he was arrested all the way from Lagos down to Kaduna on, for making false claims or statements on social media when the crisis escalated in Kaduna State. So, in a situation like this, if Nasir El-Rufai could be asked to pay some certain damages for the illegal arrest and detention of Audu Mekori, why can't this young man or this person who has been in detention for 17 years, why can't he be accorded the same, what do we call it?
Decision or privilege.
Decision or privilege of, look, I'm taking the state to court, and this is what I want for damages. I want 5 billion naira. We see cases of the likes of Natasha and Apabio. Natasha is suing Apabio for how much? For 5 billion naira, right?
Okay, let me come in there.
But sorry, before you say something, let me make something very clear. I have not said that such action cannot be taken. Okay. What I'm saying is that there should be an express lawmaking action that will make it express, stating certain situations where this kind of action can be taken. And let me also say that the courts do not jump into matters they have not been called into. The court is like a man who is sitting on his seat waiting for you to come and make complaints or reports. If you have not come, the court will not go and start looking for one for you.
Okay, I think I agree with you on that. Having certain legislations to reward people when they are being held innocently. At the end of the day, you can't hold me for 10 years and just tell me go home. You are innocent. So there should be consequences, and it should be from both the I don't know whether I should say the prosecutor, because it can't be the prosecutor. It can just be
it's the state. The state is prosecuting.
That should be able to pay a certain fine. But as it stands, is it discretionary for a judge to award a certain amount to a in a case?
What circumstances should the court award some certain damages?
Because I want to expand it to
whose responsibility is it?
Hold on,
who decides
Bivan.
What and how much?
Yes, and I want to expand it to cases like when politicians, rig their way into office, and there's a judgment after 2 years that this governor was not, duly elected. Okay, he's sacked from the office. There should be penalty for such stuff. Is it as it stands? Is it like discretionary for a judge to award 100 billion for an offense, or is it the complainant, or so to speak, that decides how much I want to be paid?
It depends on the nature of the case. If it's a civil case, generally, the judge has that discretion to order what is called costs. Okay. To say, look, for example, I was at the Supreme Court last week, Friday, a series of judgments were given, and in most of these judgments, the courts ended up ordering costs in favor of the person that won the appeal. In some other cases, they said no cost, everybody should bear his cost. But that is in civil cases, judges usually do it. They will order costs depending on when they have evaluated the case and seen that there is justification for it.
Does that also apply to the issue of plea bargain? Because somebody stole 198 billion. You are coming to tell me that, okay, settle out of, or is this out of court?
In plea bargain, it is in the interest of the person, of the defendant, of the accused person, that he does plea bargain. Plea bargain simply means we will not prosecute you if you will give us the things you have stolen.
Do you think that is healthy for us?
That is another matter for another day, honestly. But what I'm telling you in essence is that, in all reality, as it is today, in criminal prosecutions, I do not think that judges, as a matter of discretion, just go ahead to order cost in favor of a defendant who has been found innocent.
Okay, let's move away from this topic now and look at other headlines.
Y-
Do we have any headlines you want to react to
Yes, yeah,
before we sign out?
yes. I would like to react to this Adelabu to World Bank. Why Nigeria can't have stable power supply? I don't know. Minister Adelabu is supposed to be the minister of power, right?
Not
He's
supposed to,
supposed to
he
be,
is.
or he is.
He
He
is,
Minister
yeah.
of Power.
So because from this kind of statement, that's where the word "suppose." Because if you are telling us why we can't have a stable power supply, I don't think you should be telling us why we can't. You should be telling us why we can. That's my point of view in this headline. I don't know what you think.
I think he's only giving an information. That's the only way I see it.
Okay, it's been a great moment having Barrister Ugochukwu Isiguzo, a legal practitioner and social commentator here, and of course our in-house analyst, Charles Agedo. It's been a pleasant moment with you guys in the studio. And this is Third Eye Africa TV. Thank you for staying with us. More programming comes your way shortly. Stay with us. My name is Bivan Magoni. Thank you for staying with us.